Okay, hi everybody. The Right Spotters are back here again. Chris and Shane bringing you some more information. Today, little change of pace. We're going to talk more directly to Shane and get a lot of his personal perspective as a trainer, as a fitness writer, see where he came from, how he got going, how he manages and juggles and creates, and how he is great at what he does. So, Shane, how did you get started as a trainer, and at what point did you really segue to add writing into the mix?
Well, I started off as a trainer because I just really obviously had a passion for exercise and read everything I could get my hands on. And then from there I started creating my own programs and started writing my own programs, basically just like straight out of Men's Health type stuff. And then I was like, well, I moved to the United States and it was like, well, what can I do for a living? Because I've left everything behind. And I was like, well, I like coffee. I like tracksuit pants. I like telling people what to do. Boom, personal trainer, let's go. So got certified through ACE, which was a deal because I was a stay-at-home father. And then after training for a few years in the gym, I started writing for a church newsletter because basically I looked at writing as a way to get more clients, and just have a bigger presence. Now, like anybody who starts anything, I wasn't very good at it the first time, and my wife absolutely hated editing all my work. She still refuses to read it to this day, even though it's a lot better than it used to be. She won't read it. I offered her to read something the other day. She said no. So from there, I somehow got onto Harrow, help a reporter out, and started providing quotes for journalists. And that expanded into, there was a pay-per-view website called examiner.com. And during my breaks when I was working as a personal trainer, I used to go down there. They had their own software to do it. And so I started getting into the habit of writing there. And in about 2000, I think it was 2015, I basically started contributing to Tony Gennicaw's website, because I interacted with Tony a lot, and it blossomed from there.
That sounds great. That sounds like it was like steady progression and step by step. I like how you kind of added on a little bit. I also like how you started small and local at the newsletter level. I think that kind of gets overlooked. Like it's print media. It's still, people read it. One thing I think, if people Google you, they're going to find your articles all over the place, Muscle and Fitness and Garage Gym and everywhere.
Yeah,
But they're
that's
also
right.
going to see your training videos with Flex Fridays and all the video content you put out. How do you kind of balance creating written content, either for your own blog or for to be published, versus creating videos? Because you seem to do a lot of both.
I do a lot of both. I think with the creative process in general, you can't really force it, right? You can't just go, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write an article, or I'm going to do a video. Let's go, right? So one way is I balance the writing and the videos is I don't really put any pressure on myself, particularly with the videos. I set aside the time for them about 12 o'clock every day, 3 days. Well, 12 o'clock, 3 days a week. I'll go in and shoot a video. And I usually don't know what I'm going to do beforehand. But I go into the gym and I don't put any pressure on myself to create something. I'll walk around and I'll try and think of something to do. And now there have been times when I don't think of anything. And when you don't think of anything and you don't put pressure on yourself to create, then you can easily just walk away and go, well, I'm not going to do something today. It's not a big deal. Nobody's really going to notice, right? So, but more often than not, because I don't put the pressure on myself to create and I give myself the time and the space in my head to create, I usually come up with something, right? And it's also the same with writing. Even though I get a lot of my topics actually given to me, I don't really put any pressure on myself with my blog or anything else. I just go, I give myself the time and the space to do it. And usually something comes from that. I think the key is really not putting any pressure on yourself.
I like that. I think that's probably pretty counterintuitive to some people, because I think a lot of people think like, I need to make a thing now. But I kind of like your approach of being a little more laid back and just being like, let's see if I can make a thing now. I think that's an interesting approach. In terms of your blog, you mentioned briefly, I'm talking specifically for your blog, because published work and you usually get writing assignments. Where do you pull blog topics from? How do you decide, like, I'm going to sit down and, like, where do the ideas come from?
That's a really good question. So right now with my blog, I kind of do two separate kind of articles. Now I do like a personal type article where I basically talk about the obstacles of getting stuff done, getting fit. And that comes from experience because, I run a small business. I've got two teenage boys. I live in a small country town. I go through injuries and trauma and just basically like anybody else, right? I think a lot of people, when it comes to the way they see personal trainers, is that we're seen as kind of like robots. It's like we're so wired for exercise. But in those personal articles, I basically try and say, well, I'm just like you. I go through the same struggles. I find it hard to get to the gym, even though it's 40 yards from my house. So I talk a lot about like showing up, overcoming obstacles, and all that kind of stuff. And then I just do basically like training articles where I go 3 best exercises for your hamstrings, programming type thing, maybe an exercise spotlight, and that kind of thing. So I kind of publish like alternate from week to week. I do like a training type article where people go, hey, the 4 best landmine exercises for your shoulders. Because I like writing like that. And then I do like a personal based article, which gives people an insight into how I think, but also offers them kind of like life advice, so to speak. So I try not to speak from up here. I try to speak from, down there. So that's kind of where I get my ideas from.
Okay, I think that makes sense, and I like the idea of kind of alternating the genre almost of like the technical training information versus more of the, you can call it motivational. I would call it probably motivational type of writing. I like how you kind of stagger those and kind of make sure you approach both, because one might not appeal to somebody and one might appeal to somebody looking for that kind of content.
Yeah, I get a lot more traction with my personal type stuff than I do with my training stuff.
Really, that's what you've seen? That's analytics show that's
just because I have clients and friends who read it, and then if I write something personal, I usually get phone calls. Oh, Shane, you made me cry. You all right? Just chill. I'm fine. So I think with being creative and doing as much writing as I do, it's just a way to get it out of my head, really. So I saw an interview with Jerry Seinfeld, and Jerry Seinfeld, one of the funniest guys of all times. People like see him walking down the street, and they go and they tell him like an old joke from Seinfeld, and he's like, "Man, I'm so done with that joke. I'm over that." And for me, it's almost like the same with writing. It's just like for me, it's like I have to get it out. Okay, now I'm done with it. I'm good.
I mean, that's almost like journaling. That's just getting the thoughts out of your head because they're just rattling around in there and just getting your stuff out. So it's great that it connects with people. So you're helping people along the way.
That's true. That's it.
Technical wise, do you approach a blog writing any different than you do a paid piece? Do you give yourself a word count on your blog? Do you just write until it feels like you've said everything you want to say? Do you have you created your own format for your blogs? How do you?
That's a good question. You write
differently? Right.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, basically, I almost format my blogs like I do with any article, with headlines and sub headlines. I find with blogs that a sweet spot's usually between 8 to 1,200 words, right? Something that's going to take you like 3 to 5 minutes to read. So it's not a huge time investment. And we've probably spoken about on the Right Spotters before. I'm a big fan of actionable content. So I just don't want people to read something and just go, oh, that's great, but what can I do about it? So even with my personal articles on my blog, there's actual stuff that people can do if they're, going through the same thing I'm going through. They go, if you're going through this, then do this. And it's like, okay, I can do that. So just nice, simple, actionable advice. So really the audience between my paid writing and my personal writing is vastly different, but I think the process is the same.
Okay.
And they've
That's
also
interesting.
used it different, obviously, but the process is the same.
Okay. No, that's interesting. So I think some trainers might see like a blog as like a whole standalone universe, and the paid writing that they already know what the website's going to be. They might they might think they have to copy one or the other, or might set their blog up like Flex Online or whatever.
Yeah.
That's cool.
No, I don't. Yeah, so yeah, I don't do that. They're obviously completely different.
Right.
And we've spoken about this on the Right Spotters before. I think if you're looking at if you want to add writing as a source of income, I think a blog is a non-negotiable. It really does. I think what a blog has done for me, and I think what a blog has done for a lot of people, is it's just an excellent way of organizing your thoughts. I think people overlook that, right? So one of the reasons why I produce as much as I do is because of all the thinking that goes into it beforehand, right? Once I've organized the thoughts in my head, then the writing is easy. I think it's the idea and the creation, and then the organizing what you're going to write that basically takes place in your brain. That's the hardest part. Once you have that is easy, right? I think it's where a lot of people, and that's the greatest thing about just basically one, writing a lot, and two, having a blog. It doesn't really matter if anybody reads it. I don't really care, actually, if anybody reads my blog. I just need to get it out of my head. I'm just lucky enough that people do read it.
I think that's a great way to approach it. That that also takes the pressure off of you to like perform or reach a certain level. But yeah, it's like we've talked about. Like a blog is just a way and a place for you to practice your writing. So there's really no downside.
It used to take me a week to write a blog post, maybe two. Now I can write one in a day and a half. It's just yeah. It's like I said, it's like a skill, right? The more you practice it, the easier it gets, and the easier it becomes. But you got to stick in there.
You got to put the time in and practice and work on it for sure.
Yeah.
In everything you've written, like you've written plenty, are there a piece or two, like a blog post that you created or an article you've had published that you were like, I did an awesome badass job. Like this is one of the favorite things I've written. Like, do you have any favorite pieces you've created? I mean, I have things that I've written that I'm like, okay, like I did a good job. Like, does anything stand out that you're like, this is what people should know I can do?
So a long time ago, I wrote an article on strength training for tennis, and it got picked up by a few other websites. It got picked up by Yahoo. And I mean, I didn't think anything of it, but I read it back. And I was like, oh, this is good. I mean, it just had good, not that the writing was good. It's just that it had good, useful information, good programming, and that kind of stuff. I wrote 2 articles for Breaking Muscle that I'm really proud of. I know a while ago. I wrote something, the difference between health and fitness, because a lot of people put them together because they go health and fitness. But in the article, I basically separated them and saying, well, fat people can do amazing stuff, but they don't look healthy, right? And people who are fit, who do bodybuilding shows, basically faint and fall in a heap after their pose. They're not healthy, but they look fit. So I wrote an article like that, and I was really proud of it. And I think, the 10 Commandments of health and fitness, and just set it up like Moses. And I wrote that for breaking muscle, and I like that one too. Not that it was great, but just something that was memorable.
That's cool. That's cool. I think I don't remember offhand. I'm sure I've read them, but I like that. Like one sounds a little bit more creative, that you kind of went in with like a shtick, like, but you still got your information out there, which sounds great. And the other, the health and fitness, I think is something a lot of people take for granted. And if you can clarify that, you can clarify something that people don't even know they're confused about. I think that sounds huge. That sounds great.
Yeah, there are a couple of a couple that stand out. But what what you write and what becomes popular, two different things. Sometimes I think I've written something that's great, and nobody reads it. And other times I think I've written something that's like, and it goes viral. I mean, sometimes it really doesn't matter what you think. It's what the reader thinks. And we've spoken about that before.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Readers get a huge say. Like they're the jury. They're the
Yeah. Like right now, I'm writing these short 15-minute articles. Sorry, for muscle and fitness. They're like 15-minute workouts for people who are time crunched. And my editor emails me back and says, "Oh, these articles are doing really well." I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." But they're like, nothing to write. It's like, because when you've been a trainer for that long, you can come up with a 15-minute workout. You can pull it out like that and basically just write about it. And they're like short 500-600 word articles, but they're killing it on muscle and fitness. And to me, I would read and go, but to the reader who hasn't got any time, these are like gold.
That's huge. A lot of that is SEO. A lot of that is keyword. Like, it's a hot topic, and if you have something to say about a hot topic, you can do great, for sure. Of course, obviously.
Yeah. Like I said before, it's what you think and what the reader thinks are two different things.
Yeah, unfortunately. I guess if there are trainers out there listening to you right now, and they're still like on the edge about like diving in and getting started writing, what are like your top 3 tips to push them off the cliff, throw the baby bird out of the nest, and get a trainer to start writing and start writing well?
My first tip, because trainers keep odd hours, and we have schedules all over the place. And some guys are training from 6 till 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and are exhausted but still want to write. So my number one tip is, obviously, there's no perfect time and there's no perfect environment to do it. I would just set aside 10, 15, 20 minutes, even if it's just between clients. Bring your computer to work. That's what I used to do all the time. I'd bring my computer to work, and during the break, I would write. Would I get a lot done? No, because I was sitting at a gym where everybody knew me and people would come up and interrupt me and so on and so forth. But I think bringing your computer to work, particularly if you're a trainer and when you have a spare moment, get on it, because you're already in that environment. You're already in that work environment. Take advantage of it. And I think I went into it before. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to create. So I think the second tip would be, give yourself some space, right? Give yourself some space to create. Don't put any pressure on yourself, because you're already tired. You're already training clients, right? You're already a little mentally frazzled. Putting pressure on yourself isn't going to help when it comes to writing. So I would take the pressure off. My third tip is to take those problem solving skills that you have as a trainer and transfer it into writing. We've talked about before you don't have to do anything different, right? When it comes from what you do as a trainer to what you do as a writer, do the same thing. It's just an extension, right? So that'd be my main 3 tips.
I think that sounds good. I think that should get some people writing, hitting the keyboard in between clients. I think you laid out. I appreciate you sharing where you came from and how you got to where you are. Hey Shane, if somebody has a question about how to learn more about writing, where should they go?
Oh, let's go. It's going to be the Write Spotters, right? The writespotters.com, and also the Write Spotters on Facebook and Instagram, and the writespotters@gmail.com. We are open and ready for business. If you need some advice, hit us up. Let's go.
That is it. Let's go. Get in touch. We will see you guys next time.